Hello, so this is Immigration, social workers focused on trauma-related impact. So President Donald Trump made the 5th day of his presidency Immigration Day. First, he signed an executive order to plan, design, and build a border wall, states a story posted on January 27, 2017 on Political Fact, which is owned by the nonprofit Poltner Institution for Media Studies. Next was an order to hire 10,000 more immigration and custom enforcement officers, which was followed by an order directing officials to look at how federal funding could be cut from sanctuary cities. During an interview that evening with ABC News, Trump doubled down on his erroneous claim that there is no system to vet refugees. Since then, many immigrant and refugee families have been detained and separated, and some adults and children have been locked in cages. Many were held in such overcrowded quarters they couldn't lie down to sleep. And some lacked good food and access to water, toothbrushes, and health care, and even when sick. The location of many separated children are unknown, and some toddlers have faced immigration court judges all alone. As of June 9th, 2019, NBC reported 24 immigrants had died in ICE custody. With so many immigrants and refugees experiencing the trauma-related impacts, social workers are stepping up to help in a variety of ways, from direct care to advocacy on the border. One big issue seen in Texas is higher fees for immigrants who want to enter the U.S., said Will Francis, LMSW, Executive Director of NASW in Texas. They're trying to make one of the barriers a financial issue, he said. What is shown is this administration is going to do anything it can to put up barriers to stop them. It's not working. The situation is, we're still seeing families come, people fleeing violence or coming to the border seeking asylum and have to wait in Mexico. We see communities here in Texas relying on donations because the system is starved for resources. The facility holding families together are at capacity, Francis said, and unaccompanied children are held separately. But the facilities are very hard to get into, and he believes conditions are unsanitary and traumatizing. They don't want anyone to know what's happening inside, he said. The staff in these facilities do not have trauma-informed training, and they don't have the mental health facilities that are needed. They're treating these people as criminals when they're fleeing violence and seeking safety and support. The whole system is set up to do harm, and I think that's what the administration wants. It's like if someone comes to your office for therapy and you lock them in your closet. Francis believes the solution lies in supporting change and resources. We have to look at it from a humanitarian standpoint. There is inadequate medical care, therapeutic care, and mental health care. So, range of trauma. Cheryl Aguilar, founder of and lead therapist of the Hope Center for Wellness in Washington, D.C., said when asylum seekers come to the border and are not let in, and when immigrants come and are separated from their family members, it can only cause anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The structure of attachment is critical to a child. And if all of a sudden a parent or person they trust is not there, it's really scary, especially if they call out and the parent can't respond. When a child knows someone they trust is not there, and the people who are there are not friendly, anxiety is what's going to happen. Adults already have been traumatized because they were forced to flee violence, poverty, and the lack of opportunity, and took a long, dangerous trip on foot. I think the hardest part of what we're seeing is it is driven by policies, and it's really affecting the health of individuals. Andrea Hayter, MSW-LSW, behavioral health coordinator at Inner City Muslim Action Network in Chicago, provides therapy to families and individuals of all ages. The facility is a health care center with a mandate to serve all who walk in, she said, and it receives a lot of Latino and Arab clients. Haydar sees different impacts on different people. Some who are living away from their families and their culture can feel isolated. Others have experienced violence before coming here, and it can be hard for them to feel comfortable, she said. Some can feel fear around using services. Generally, trauma impacts the ability to enjoy relationships with loved ones. Violence can affect trust. The center has an aid benefits advisor who assists those who qualify to obtain insurance. Haydar said she provides direct services, mainly mental health therapy and counseling. So, we move on to providing services. Social workers can provide the much needed help because they are trained to respond in a holistic and comprehensive way, Engler said. First, they help refugees and immigrants understand that their feelings is normal considering what they've been through, and they need a holistic approach. That can include therapy, both family and one-on-one. Support groups are good too, because participants can learn from each other, and the group shows people they are not alone, she said. Social workers should provide trauma-informed care through a cultural lens that accounts for the client's uniqueness, and the psychosocial approach can be helpful. Also, mindfulness is an intervention that allows them to ground themselves. Engler said she sometimes thinks about all of the unimaginable things they have survived, and she believes using a strength-based perspective can be beneficial. They have strength within them, she said. Remind them of what they already have overcome. Remind them they know how to get up after they've fallen. They know how to get up in the midst of adversity. Francis said supporting the families and their connections with each other begins with the assessment of discern the level of trauma using a culturally competent lens. Speaking their language or using an interpreter and seeing the family as a whole system, he said. There's no question the trauma is there. The question is, what do people need so we can support them? Social workers can look for needed resources, offer clinical support, including short-term therapy, help to find legal support, and advocate for individuals and families, he said. We can look for barriers in the community, find partnerships and resources, and use preventative care for children. The goal is for all social workers is how do we support these families and their connections with each other? The answer is twofold. He said direct support and advocacy. So, how to help? Volunteers should check with a state to see what its laws are before going there to help, because state laws vary widely. Since only social workers licensed in Texas can provide therapy and services, social workers cannot come to the state and expect to do the same. But there are other ways to help for those who want to work on the front lines, Francis said. There are various groups working in Texas, and some need or can use volunteers. Basically, there are three areas: the court system, translator interpretation assistance, and working with organizations where families go when they are released. Communication is an issue, so volunteer to translate, Francis said. One important thing to remember, he said, we need to continue to advocate for federal change. Aguilar said, social workers are creative and should look around their communities to see how they can help. If you see the need for a program, create it. If people need information, look at what's needed and what resources are available and figure out how to provide it, she said. Social workers can write a blog post, talk to the media, write a short story containing tips on what to do, or form a group with others, Engler said. We know we have more impact when we work in partnership. So we are one of 5 organizations that come together. The group holds educational calls, shares information about immigration that affects clients, mobilizes people to attend rallies, and connects online once a month and in person quarterly. Anyone can figure out what resources are needed for their community, sharing training opportunities, and take part in actions together, like signing petitions or attending rallies. Engler said, come together and form a working coalition, then work together to figure out how to support each other and the immigration rights movement. Addressing policies. In 2018, Social Justice Brief, Migrant and Asylum-Seeking Families, Analysis of Federal Government Policies and Procedures, contributors Francis Allen Wachendorf, then Director of Public Policy for NASW Michigan, and Mel Wilson, then Manager of Department of Social Justice and Human Rights for NASW, conclude the current immigration policies and the methods in which they are being implemented violate social work values. The brief ends with a suggestion from Social Justice Solutions that address the question many social workers were asking: what can we do? The suggestions include work or volunteer with community trusted organizations that have a proven history of advocating for immigrant families, provide support to advocacy groups that work to unite families and prevent separation, educate yourselves on legal aid, and policy issues about immigration statuses and how they affect child welfare and other matters, lobby your members of Congress, and contact local elected officials to push for laws that protect basic human rights. So, coalition building. Haydar has an idea that began forming when she wrote the paper in 2017 titled Social Workers and the Protection of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. In the introduction, she says her ideas are drawn from Deepa Elner's social movement theories and models that advocate building multiracial, multi-issue coalitions that connect immigrant and refugee advocates with other racial and social justice groups. That puts it in a broader frame. She said, all of our rights are connected and we should care about the rights of others. There currently is an assault on liberties and rights. In the paper, she describes Einer's rationale. For Einer, advocating for the rights of immigrants, refugees, and minorities required social movement organization that included broader issues of racial and social justice. While she identifies particular issues that disproportionately affect people from certain identity groups, she situates her call for action with an inclusive frame that welcomes people of all identities to work together and advance each other's causes. Haydar believes a strong coalition for immigration and refugees could come from merging with advocates in different groups. For example, organizations and groups advocating for women's rights, groups supporting LGBT persons, and others addressing issues of race could together be more powerful than alone. The work of mental health groups, healthcare providers, and lawyers also touches on and relates to immigrant and refugee rights, and professionals in those areas would be valuable to a coalition. Drawing in and working with varied groups with interests in the population puts an effort in a broader frame. All of our rights are connected. We should care about the rights of others. Building support together, we can help advance the cause. More families torn apart. The Trump administration admitted to a federal court that it separated and additional 1,556 parents and children from each other under its illegal family separation policy. The American Civil Liberties Union secured a nationwide injunction in 2018 blocking the policy, but in January 2019, an Office of Inspector General concluded the administration did not actually know the total number of families it separated. The ACLU asked the court to order an accounting from the Trump administration, which was granted. The numbers were reported on October 24th. Lee Gallerite, lead attorney in the lawsuit and deputy director of ACLU's Immigration Rights Project, said, "It is shocking that 1,556 more families, including babies and toddlers, joined the thousands of others already torn apart by this inhuman and illegal policy. Families have suffered tremendously, and some may never recover. The gravity of this situation cannot be overstated." So, Refugee Facts. Under the Refugee Act, the President consults with Congress to establish an overall refugee admissions ceiling and regional allocations before the beginning of the fiscal year. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security states the U.S. Department of State is the source of the proposed and actual refugee admission data cited. In 2016, the total allowed refugee admissions were 85,000, with 84,988 admitted. In 2017, the ceiling was 110,000 and 53,691 admitted. In 2018, the refugee ceiling was decreased to 45,000, with 22,405, or 50%, admitted. This was a 59% decrease from the previous year and a 47% decrease from the 2016 allegation. The leading countries of nationality for refugees admitted in 2018 were 35% from the Democratic Republic for the Congo, 16% from Burma, 12% from Ukraine, 10% from Bhutan, and 6% from Eritrea. Those 5 counties comprise 78% of total refugees admissions. So President Trump targets asylum seekers. The Trump administration's all-out war on asylum seekers is being carried out at the border. They have fled violence and persecution, arriving to an America that has slammed the door shut, following changes to the prior policies that offers safe haven to those who qualify. Almost 60,000 people have been sent back to Mexico to wait for distant court hearings after the program forcing return to Mexico was implemented. They would face possible violence, kidnapping, extortion, and homelessness. A new policy bans any who traveled through another country between where they fled and the United States, so many will not qualify for asylum no matter how strong their claim is. The Trump administration has created a humanitarian crisis at the southern border that is now of near unfathomable scale, and barring change, it is likely to get worse. Legal immigration changes impact system. The Trump administration has made policy changes, including refugee admissions totals reduced from 110,000 and to 50,000 for 2017, lowered to 45,000 for 2018, and further reduced to 18,000 for 2020. Slowing lawful immigration processes like green card applications, where the backlog had increased by more than 35% at the end of 2017. A new U.S. citizenship and immigration service policy offers to outright deny any visa or green card application with missing evidence or an error with no chance for an application to fix it. Applicant to fix it. Pushing more people into deportation proceedings by issuing a notice to appear that adds to court case backlogs. Undermining asylum by denying it to almost anyone who does not apply from Mexico or another third country. The U.S. Supreme Court approved a third version of Trump's Muslim plan. It bars almost everyone from several Muslim-majority countries, including Yemen, Iran, Libya, Chad, Somalia, and Syria. Immigration courts are being used to increase deportations by reopening thousands of deportation cases previously closed due to low priority. It could affect hundreds of thousands of people and speed up deportations. Quota requirements set for immigration judges to speed up the process, which restricts the judge's ability to terminate deportation proceedings, except in very narrow circumstances. So that's it for this. Thank you for listening. Once again, that was Immigration, Social Workers Focused on Trauma-Related Impact.